The explosion rocked the elementary school's science fair, sending vinegar and baking soda volcano fragments flying across the gymnasium. Children screamed with delight as parents ducked for cover. In the center of the chaos stood 7-year-old Madeline Maddie Westbrook, her blonde pigtails bobbing as she jumped up and down, clapping her hands with glee at the spectacular failure of her volcano experiment. "That was awesome!" she squealed, completely unfazed by the disaster. Her teacher, Autumn Hayes, rushed over, her chestnut hair falling loose from its previously neat bun as she frantically tried to contain the situation. At 32, Autumn had dealt with her fair share of classroom mishaps, but nothing quite like this. "Maddie, sweetie, we talked about following the measurements exactly," Autumn said, trying to keep her voice calm as she surveyed the damage. Several parents were dabbing at their designer clothes, now splattered with red food coloring meant to be lava. "But Miss Hayes, bigger is always better. That's what Daddy always says," Maddie replied with innocent confidence. As if summoned by his name, the gymnasium doors burst open with an unnecessary dramatic flair. Grayson Westbrook strode in, his 6'3" frame commanding attention in a perfectly tailored Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than Autumn's annual salary. His security detail flanked him like an emperor's guard. The crowd parted instinctively. Not because they recognized one of the country's wealthiest tech entrepreneurs, but because Grayson Westbrook moved through the world as if everyone should naturally get out of his way. And mostly they did. "Daddy!" Maddie sprinted across the gym, leaving red footprints in her wake. Grayson's stern expression softened immediately as he swept his daughter up into his arms, seemingly unconcerned about the mess transferring to his immaculate suit. "There's my little scientist," he said warmly. "I heard your experiment was a showstopper." Autumn approached cautiously, clutching a roll of paper towels like a shield. "Mr. Westbrook, I'm so sorry about this. I tried to—" "Miss Hayes, isn't it?" Grayson cut her off, his steel gray eyes scanning her from head to toe, taking in her modest dress now splattered with lava stains. "You're the teacher who's been sending me emails about Maddie's parent-teacher conferences, the ones I haven't had time to respond to." Autumn straightened her spine. "Yes, and this is precisely why we need to talk about Maddie's enthusiasm for exceeding parameters." Grayson raised an eyebrow, looking almost amused. "I have a meeting with the governor in an hour, but clearly we should discuss this. My office tomorrow, 10 a.m. It wasn't a request. "I have classes to teach tomorrow, Mr. Westbrook," Autumn replied. Grayson shrugged dismissively. "I've already made a substantial donation to your school. I'm sure they can find a substitute." He handed her a business card. "The address. Don't be late." Before Autumn could respond, he turned his attention back to Maddie, who was excitedly recounting every detail of her explosive experiment. Grayson listened attentively, as if his daughter's science fair disaster was the most important briefing he'd received all day. For the briefest moment, Autumn glimpsed something beneath the arrogant billionaire facade, a father who adored his daughter. The next morning, Autumn found herself in the imposing glass tower of Westbrook Innovations, being escorted to the top floor by an assistant who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. "He doesn't like to be kept waiting," the assistant informed her as the elevator climbed 60 floors at a speed that made Autumn's stomach lurch. Grayson's office was exactly what she'd expected. Minimalist, expensive, with floor-to-ceiling, windows offering a panoramic view of the city, he seemed to consider his personal kingdom. "Miss Hayes." Grayson stood from behind his desk that could have comfortably seated 12. "Prompt. I appreciate that." "Mr. Westbrook, I'm here because I care about Maddie's education and development," Autumn began, refusing to be intimidated, despite the setting. "Maddie is the reason I asked you here as well," he replied, gesturing for her to sit. "My daughter hasn't stopped talking about you for months. Miss Hayes says this. Miss Hayes does that. It's become rather tiresome." Autumn blinked in confusion. "I'm sorry?" "Don't be. It's refreshing." Since her mother died 3 years ago, Maddie hasn't connected with many people. His voice remained businesslike, but Autumn caught a flicker of something vulnerable in his eyes. She needs stability, a female presence. That's why I've been trying to schedule these conferences, Mr. Westbrook. With proper communication between us, we can ensure Maddie gets consistent guidance. I agree completely. Grayson interrupted, sitting on the edge of his desk, uncomfortably close to her chair. That's why I think you should marry me. Autumn's jaw dropped. She waited for the punchline, but Grayson Westbrook's expression remained serious. That's absolutely insane, she finally managed. Grayson shrugged as if he'd merely suggested they grab coffee. It's practical. Maddie adores you. I need someone responsible in her life when I'm traveling. You clearly need financial assistance. Your car in the parking lot looks like it's being held together with hope and duct tape. I am not marrying. You! Autumn stood up so quickly her chair almost toppled. It would be a business arrangement, he continued calmly. Separate bedrooms, generous compensation. After a suitable period, say 2 years, an amicable divorce with an excellent settlement for you. This is beyond inappropriate. I'm Maddie's teacher, not some commodity you can acquire. Grayson's expression hardened. Everything has a price, Miss Hayes. Name yours. You are unbelievable, Autumn sputtered. There isn't enough money in the world. What about your mother's medical bills? The words hit Autumn like a physical blow. What did you say? Stage 4 cancer, isn't it? Experimental treatments not covered by insurance? His tone softened slightly. I make it my business to know things, Miss Hayes. Especially about people who are important to my daughter. Autumn felt the blood drain from her face. Her mother's treatment was costing more than she could possibly afford on a teacher's salary. The debt was crushing her. This is emotional blackmail, she whispered. Grayson stood up, straightening his tie. This is business. I need a mother figure for Maddie. You need money. I'm offering a solution that benefits everyone. Everyone. Except me. You can't seriously expect $3 million, he said smoothly, upon the dissolution of our arrangement, plus all medical expenses for your mother. The best care available. Autumn fell silent, calculations and implications racing through her mind. Think of it as a role, Miss Hayes. You're good with children, clearly ethical, and Maddie already respects you. I'm not asking for anything inappropriate, just your presence, your influence on my daughter, and the occasional appearance at social functions. And if I refuse? Grayson's smile didn't reach his eyes. Then I wish you the best with those medical bills, and perhaps I'll need to reconsider my donation to your school. Times are tough in education funding, I hear. Autumn stared at him, fury and helplessness warring within her. You're a monster. I'm a father who would do anything for his daughter, he corrected, just as you'd do anything for your mother. He slid a thick document across the desk. My terms. Take it home. Read it. You have until Monday to decide. As Autumn grabbed the contract and stormed toward the door, Grayson called after her. Miss Hayes, Maddie has a piano recital tomorrow evening. She'd be delighted if her favorite teacher attended. Autumn stopped, her hand on the doorknob. Is that an order too, Mr. Westbrook? No, he said softly. That's just a father asking for something that would make his little girl happy. For just a moment, their eyes met, and Autumn glimpsed something unexpected behind Grayson Westbrook's carefully constructed armor. A hint of loneliness, of a man who had everything except what mattered most. Then the moment passed, his expression becoming unreadable once more, and Autumn fled the office with her mind in turmoil and an impossible decision weighing on her shoulders. Autumn's small apartment had never felt so claustrophobic. For 3 hours, she'd been pacing between her kitchenette and living room, the thick contract from Grayson Westbrook lying untouched on her coffee table like a ticking bomb. He can't be serious, she muttered, for perhaps the 100th time. running her fingers through her hair until it stood up in disheveled waves. Her phone rang, the hospital's number flashing on the screen. Autumn's heart sank as she answered. "Miss Hayes? This is Dr. Patel. We need to discuss your mother's treatment plan. The insurance company has denied the next round of therapy and—" 20 minutes later, Autumn sat in stunned silence, staring at the figure she'd scrawled on a notepad. The amount needed for her mother's continued treatment might as well have been $1 billion. It was equally unreachable on her salary. Her gaze drifted to the contract. With trembling fingers, she finally picked it up and began to read. The terms were simultaneously better and worse than she'd expected. 2 years of marriage, a generous monthly stipend, complete coverage of her mother's medical expenses at the renowned Westbrook Medical Center. No expectations of conjugal rights. The clinical language made her cringe. Required attendance at social functions as Mrs. Westbrook. Required residence in the Westbrook mansion. And most importantly to Grayson, it seemed, a detailed section about her responsibilities toward Maddie, from homework help to attending school events. As dusk fell outside her window, Autumn reached for her phone and called her best friend, Harper. "He asked you to what?" Harper's voice reached a pitch that made Autumn hold the phone away from her ear. "That straight-up Jane Austen meets indecent proposal. Tell him to shove his contract where the sun don't shine." "I want to. Believe me, I do," Autumn sighed. "But my mom—" The silence on the line stretched. "You're actually considering it?" Harper's voice softened. "I don't know what else to do," Autumn admitted, tears welling in her eyes for the first time since leaving Grayson's office. "The treatment she needs, it's her only chance." "Oh, honey," Harper said gently. "What about that cute doctor who asked you out last month? Maybe he could help with your mom's case." "Dr. Camden. He was transferred to Seattle," Autumn replied with a humorless laugh. "Besides, one date doesn't entitle me to call in medical favors." "Fair enough, but marrying billionaire McMoneybags? There's got to be another way." But by the time they hung up, neither had found one. Autumn spent a restless night weighing impossible choices. By morning, she'd made her decision, though it sat like lead in her stomach. She would attend Maddie's piano recital that evening and give Grayson her answer. The recital hall was housed in a historic building downtown that had clearly benefited from Westbrook patronage, judging by the plaque in the lobby. Autumn slipped into a seat near the back, hoping to remain inconspicuous until she could speak with Grayson privately afterward. Maddie was the fifth performer, walking onto the stage in a midnight blue dress that matched her father's suit. The little girl scanned the audience anxiously before her face lit up upon spotting Autumn. She waved enthusiastically, drawing several heads to turn in Autumn's direction, including Grayson's. For a fleeting moment, their eyes met across the crowded auditorium. Unlike at his office, his expression was unguarded, relief and something like gratitude passing across his features before his typical mask of confident indifference returned. Maddie played Beethoven's For Elise with impressive skill for me, her age, only stumbling on a few notes. When she finished, she beamed as the audience applauded. "I'd like to dedicate my performance to my teacher, Miss Hayes," she announced into the microphone. "Because she always says mistakes are just part of learning, and that makes it less scary to try." Autumn felt her throat tighten with emotion. This little girl deserved every bit of support and love possible, even if her father's methods were ethically questionable. After the recital, Autumn made her way through the crowd toward Grayson and Maddie. The little girl spotted her first and ran over, launching herself into Autumn's arms. "You came! Did you hear me play? Daddy's been helping me practice every night." "You were wonderful, sweetie," Autumn said sincerely. "I loved every note." "Even the wrong ones?" Maddie asked anxiously. "Especially those. They showed how brave you are to keep going." Grayson approached, hands in his pockets, watching their interaction with interest. "Maddie, why don't you go congratulate your friend Zoe?" I need to speak with Miss Hayes for a moment. Once Maddie was out of earshot, he turned to Autumn. I'm glad you came. It meant a lot to her. That's why I'm here, Autumn replied, her voice steadier than she felt. And why I've made my decision. Grayson's expression revealed nothing. Let's step outside. The night air was cool as they walked to a small courtyard behind the recital hall. The sound of a fountain provided privacy from the few other people mingling nearby. Before you give me your answer, Grayson said unexpectedly, I want to amend my offer. Autumn frowned. How so? After our meeting, I realized my approach was heavy-handed. It clearly pained him to admit this. The terms remain the same, but I want to be clear that your mother's medical care is guaranteed regardless of your decision. I've already arranged it. Autumn stared at him in disbelief. Why would you do that? Grayson avoided her gaze, focusing on the fountain. Maddie mentioned that your mother is sick. She was worried about you. I may be many things, Miss Hayes, but I don't use children's illnesses as bargaining chips. Just adults, then? Autumn couldn't help saying. A fleeting smile touched his lips. Touché. Let's say I reconsidered my tactics. Autumn studied him carefully. So, what exactly are you saying? That I'm free to refuse without consequences? The medical care stands regardless. The school donation as well. He finally looked directly at her. But my offer of marriage remains. For Maddie's sake. I still don't understand why it has to be marriage. You could hire a nanny, a governess. I've tried, 7 in the past year, Grayson said with a sigh. Maddie doesn't connect with them, and, frankly, the gossip columns have taken to calling me America's most eligible widower, which has attracted the wrong kind of attention. A marriage, even a temporary one, would address both issues. Autumn bit her lip. With her mother's care, secured, she should walk away. And yet, I'll do it, she said quietly. But I have conditions of my own. Grayson's eyebrows rose slightly. I'm listening. I want to continue teaching, though I'll take a leave for the remainder of this school year to avoid conflicts of interest with Maddie. I want a separate wing in your house. I won't be at your beck and call for every social event. You'll need to provide advance notice, and I want it in writing that I'll have a say in decisions regarding Maddie. Grayson considered this for a moment. Acceptable, with one amendment. You'll need to attend key business functions with minimal notice. Some opportunities can't be planned for. Fine, but you won't dictate what I wear or how I behave. Within reason, he countered. No jeans at state dinners, for instance. Despite everything, Autumn found herself fighting a smile. I think I can manage that compromise. For a moment, an unexpected truce hung between them. Then Grayson pulled a small box from his pocket. I assumed you'd say yes, he admitted, opening it to reveal a stunning emerald ring surrounded by diamonds. Family heirloom, my mother's. Autumn hesitated before extending her hand. Presumptuous of you. Strategic, he corrected, sliding the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. I had it sized based on the records from the charity drive your school did last winter, the one where they took hand measurements for children's gloves. That's slightly disturbing. That's research, he replied with the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. We'll announce our engagement at the charity gala next week. I suggest you prepare yourself for significant media attention. Before Autumn could respond, a small voice called out, Daddy? Miss Hayes? They turned to see Maddie standing at the courtyard entrance, her eyes wide as she spotted the ring glittering on Autumn's finger. Is Miss Hayes going to be my new mommy? She asked, her voice filled with such hope that it made Autumn's heart twist. Grayson and Autumn exchanged a glance, a wordless communication passing between them. This was the real contract they were signing, far beyond the legal document. Would that make you happy, Munchkin? Grayson asked gently. Maddie didn't answer with words, Instead, she launched herself at both of them, her small arms trying to encircle them both, pulling them into an awkward three-person embrace. Over the little girl's head, Autumn's eyes met Grayson's. For the first time, she saw uncertainty in his expression, a flash of vulnerability that revealed the weight of responsibility he carried as a single father. "We have a lot to figure out," Autumn murmured to him. "Yes," he agreed softly. "We do." And in that moment, with Maddie's arms around them both, the strange arrangement they'd negotiated began to feel less like a business deal and more like something neither of them had anticipated, the tentative beginning of a family. "Hold, still," Harper muttered, trying to secure another bobby pin into Autumn's updo. "Who knew your hair would stage such a rebellion against high society?" Autumn fidgeted nervously in front of the full-length mirror. The woman staring back at her was almost unrecognizable, draped in a champagne-colored gown that cost more than her car, with makeup applied by a professional who'd arrived at the Westbrook mansion 3 hours earlier. The emerald ring felt heavy on her finger, a constant reminder of the charade she'd agreed to perform. "Is this really necessary?" Autumn asked as her friend secured the final pin. "According to America's most arrogant billionaire, yes. The charity gala is your official debut as the future Mrs. Westbrook." Harper stepped back to admire her handiwork. "Though I still think you should run while you can." A soft knock interrupted them. "Miss Hayes?" It was Grayson's personal assistant, Vanessa. "Mr. Westbrook asked me to deliver this." She handed Autumn a velvet jewelry box. Inside was a stunning emerald necklace that perfectly matched her engagement ring. "Good grief," Harper whispered. "That thing could fund a small country." Vanessa's lips twitched slightly. "Mr. Westbrook thought it would complement your ensemble. The car will be ready in 20 minutes. She slipped out as quietly as she'd entered. Autumn stared at the necklace. "I can't wear this." Yes, you absolutely can," Harper countered, lifting it from the box. "Consider it hazard pay." As Harper clasped it around her neck, Autumn caught sight of a small note in the jewelry box. "For appearances. Not a gift to keep. GW." "Charming," she muttered. Exactly 20 minutes later, Autumn descended the mansion's grand staircase to find Grayson waiting in the foyer. He wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo that accentuated his broad shoulders, his dark hair slicked back, looking every inch the powerful magnate. For a moment, he simply stared at her, his expression unreadable. "What?" she asked self-consciously. "Is something wrong with the dress?" "No," he replied, his voice unusually quiet. "You look..." He cleared his throat. "The necklace is appropriate." "Good." Before Autumn could respond, Maddie bounded into the foyer in pajamas decorated with dinosaurs wearing party hats. "Wow," she exclaimed. "Miss Hayes, you look like a princess." Autumn smiled, kneeling carefully in her gown. "Thank you, sweetheart. And you look very comfortable. Dinosaur sleepover plans?" "Yep. Mrs. Winters is staying with me. We're making blanket forts and watching movies about dolphins." Grayson checked his watch. "The car is waiting. Maddie, bed by 9. No negotiations." Maddie rolled her eyes dramatically. "I know, Daddy." She gave him a quick hug before turning to Autumn. "Can I have a good night hug too? I'll be asleep when you get back." Something warm bloomed in Autumn's chest as she embraced the little girl. Over Maddie's shoulder, she caught Grayson watching them with an expression that almost resembled tenderness. The moment was fleeting. Within minutes, they were in the back of a sleek limousine, a careful distance between them on the leather seat. "Remember," Grayson said, eyes fixed on his phone as he typed something. "The story is that we've been dating discreetly for months. We met through Maddie, of course, but reconnected at an education fundraiser last fall. You were initially reluctant because of the professional conflict with Maddie being your student." "I've memorized our fictional romance," Autumn replied dryly. though I'm still confused why anyone would believe I captured the interest of Manhattan's most eligible bachelor. Grayson looked up from his phone. Don't sell yourself short. You're intelligent, compassionate, and... He gestured vaguely at her appearance. Obviously beautiful when you make an effort. Wow, Autumn said flatly. You really know how to make a girl feel special. A hint of a smile touched his lips. I meant that as a compliment. Then you're even worse at this than I thought. To her surprise, Grayson actually chuckled. Probably true. Maddie likes to remind me that I'm emotionally constipated. Her school counselor's phrase, not mine. The unexpected moment of self-deprecation caught Autumn off guard, and she found herself smiling despite herself. The limousine pulled up to the glittering Plaza Hotel, where photographers lined the red carpet. Autumn's smile vanished. You didn't mention paparazzi, she hissed. Grayson shrugged. They're always at these events. Just smile, hold my arm, and try not to look like you're being held hostage. No promises, she muttered as the driver opened the door. The camera flashes were blinding. Grayson's arm slipped around her waist, steady and secure as he guided her through the gauntlet of photographers shouting their names. Mr. Westbrook, over here. Who's the lady, Grayson? Is that an engagement ring? Grayson expertly navigated them forward with practiced ease, pausing occasionally for photos but ignoring all questions. Autumn's face hurt from maintaining her smile, her heart pounding so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. Once inside the opulent ballroom, Grayson leaned close to her ear. You're doing fine. Deep breaths. Easy for you to say, she whispered back. This is my first time being treated like a zoo exhibit. First rule of the jungle, he murmured, his breath warm against her skin. Never let them see your fear. Before Autumn could retort, they were surrounded by New York's elite, business magnates, celebrities, and politicians all clamoring for Grayson's attention while eyeing Autumn with undisguised curiosity. Grayson, darling, a striking woman, in her 50s approached, air-kissing near Grayson's cheeks. The rumors are true, I see. You finally decided to rejoin the land of the living. Eleanor, Grayson nodded coolly. May I introduce Autumn Hayes, my fiancée? Autumn, Eleanor Vanderbilt, chairwoman of tonight's event. Eleanor's expertly Botoxed face managed to convey surprise despite its limited mobility. Fiancé? My. You do move quickly when you decide on something. And what is it you do, dear? I'm an elementary school teacher, Autumn replied. Eleanor blinked rapidly. How refreshing. Excuse me, I simply must check on the auction items. As she retreated, Autumn bit back a laugh. I think I broke her brain. You'd be surprised how often that happens in these circles when someone admits to having a job. That actually helps people, Grayson replied, guiding her toward the bar. What would you like to drink? Something strong enough to get through the night, but not so strong I'll embarrass you, she answered honestly. He ordered champagne for both of them. For what it's worth, he said quietly. You're handling this better than most. The evening progressed in a blur of introductions and small talk. Autumn found herself scrutinized, evaluated, and occasionally dismissed by the wealthy and powerful. Through it all, Grayson remained by her side, his hand at the small of her back, protective in a way she hadn't expected. During a momentary lull in the socializing, Autumn spotted a familiar face across the room. Is that Senator Mitchell? The one pushing? For education budget cuts. Grayson followed her gaze. Yes, why? No reason, she said lightly, taking a deliberate step in the senator's direction. Grayson caught her elbow. Whatever you're planning, don't. I'm just going to have a friendly chat about the real-world impact of his policies on actual children, with specific examples from my classroom. Autumn. His use of her first name caught her attention. Not tonight. Then when? She challenged. People like me don't usually get access to people like him. Grayson studied her for a long moment. Next month, my foundation is hosting an education summit. I'll make sure you're on the panel discussing classroom funding. Mitchell will be there. Autumn stared at him. You'd do that? It's a reasonable request with mutual benefits, he replied pragmatically. Your expertise lends credibility to the foundation, and you get your platform. Before she could respond, the orchestra began, playing a waltz, and Grayson extended his hand. We should dance. People are watching. The dance floor cleared slightly as they took their position, other couples giving them space. Whether out of respect for Grayson's status or curiosity about his mysterious fiancé, Autumn wasn't sure. I should warn you, she murmured as his hand settled at her waist. I haven't danced since college. Just follow my lead, he replied, guiding her into the first steps. Like everything else in business and high society, it's mostly confidence and appearance. To Autumn's surprise, she found herself relaxing into the dance. Grayson was an unexpectedly skilled partner, leading with subtle pressure and making her look far more graceful than she felt. Where did you learn to dance like this? She asked. Boarding school. Required course. A shadow crossed his features. Eliza, my wife, used to tease me about it. It was the first time he'd mentioned his late wife by name. Autumn tread carefully. She sounds like she had a good sense of humor. She did, he said quietly. She would have found this whole situation amusing. Me stumbling around in borrowed finery? No, he replied, his eyes meeting hers with unexpected sincerity. Me, thinking I could manage this, us, like a business transaction. Something shifted in the air between them, a moment of genuine connection cutting through the pretense. Then a camera flash went off nearby, and Grayson's expression shuddered once more, the professional mask sliding back into place. The evening concluded with Grayson making a substantial donation to the Children's Hospital being supported by the gala. The gossip columnists had already sent the news of their engagement racing across social media, complete with photos of Autumn's emerald ring. In the limousine ride home, Autumn kicked off her heels with a groan of relief. Please tell me we don't have to do that again anytime soon. Grayson loosened his bow tie. Unfortunately, there's the museum benefit next weekend. Then I was afraid you'd say that. She leaned her head back against the seat, suddenly exhausted. At least tell me I didn't embarrass you too badly. On the contrary, he replied. You were... He paused, seeming to search for the right word. Authentic. It's rare in those circles. Is that a polite way of saying I was out of place? It's my way of saying you were a breath of fresh air. His tone was different, softer, without the sharp business edge. Thank you. For tonight. The unexpected gratitude caught her off guard. You're welcome. When they arrived at the mansion, the cavernous entry hall was quiet, the household staff already retired for the night. Grayson checked his watch. It's late. I have an early conference call with Tokyo. He hesitated, then added, Good night, Autumn. Good night, Grayson. He turned to leave, then paused. I meant what I said about the education panel. My assistant will contact you with the details. As he disappeared down the hallway toward his wing of the house, Autumn stood in the empty foyer, still processing the events of the evening. This marriage of convenience was proving far more complicated than she'd anticipated, not because Grayson was the cold, calculating businessman she'd expected, but because occasionally, just occasionally, she glimpsed someone else entirely beneath that carefully constructed facade. Before heading to her own quarters, Autumn found herself drawn to Maddie's room. She opened the door quietly, smiling at the elaborate blanket, fort constructed in the center of the child's bedroom. Inside, Maddie slept peacefully, surrounded by stuffed dinosaurs and picture books. Mrs. Winters, the elderly housekeeper who often cared for Maddie, dozed in a nearby armchair. She stirred as Autumn entered. She waited up as long as she could, the woman whispered with a fond smile. Wanted to hear all about you looking like a princess. Thank you for staying with her, Autumn replied softly. Been with this family since Mr. Westbrook was a boy, Mrs. Winters said, gathering her things. Never seen him like he's been these past weeks. Whatever you're doing, it's good for both of them. After Mrs. Winters left, Autumn carefully adjusted Maddie's blanket and planted a gentle kiss on her forehead. Sweet dreams, sweetheart, she whispered. As she turned to leave, a small voice murmured sleepily, Are you happy being my new mommy? Autumn's heart caught. She knelt beside the fort. I'm very happy to be in your life, Maddie. Good. The little girl's eyes were already drifting closed again. Daddy seems happier too. Less grumpy. I think it's 'cause of you. Long after Maddie had fallen back asleep, Autumn lay awake in her own bed, contemplating the strange turn her life had taken. The evening had revealed something unexpected. Beneath the business proposal and financial arrangements, there was potential for genuine connection in this unorthodox family they were creating. The question was whether she was brave enough, or foolish enough, to let herself believe it could be real. And then, Daddy said Mommy Autumn, could have her own special room just for teaching in our house. Isn't that cool? Maddie chattered excitedly to her friend as they colored at the kitchen island. Autumn, who had been preparing a snack for the girls' playdate, froze at the words, Mommy Autumn. It had been 3 weeks since she'd moved into the Westbrook mansion, and while she and Maddie had grown closer each day, this was the first time the child had used the term. That's nice of your dad, Autumn replied carefully, setting apple slices and peanut butter before the children. He's being extra nice lately, Maddie confided in a loud whisper to her friend. He even took us to the zoo on Sunday, even though he had important, boring work stuff. Autumn smiled at the memory. Grayson, dressed in casual clothes for once, designer, jeans and a simple button-down, but casual nonetheless, had spent the entire day devoted to Maddie's whims, patiently standing before every exhibit the child wanted to see. To Autumn's surprise, he'd known an impressive amount about various animals, entertaining both her and Maddie with obscure facts about red pandas and meerkats. My dad says your dad is super serious on TV, Maddie's friend Zoe observed, reaching for an apple slice. But he looks nice when he smiles. He doesn't smile a lot, Maddie acknowledged thoughtfully, but he does more now. The kitchen door swung open, and Mrs. Winters bustled in. Miss Hayes, your mother's on the phone. Says she has news from the doctor. Autumn's heart leapt into her throat. Girls, Mrs. Winters will stay with you for a few minutes, okay? She hurried to the study Grayson had allocated for her use, hands trembling as she picked up the phone. Mom? What did they say? 20 minutes later, Autumn was still sitting at her desk, tears streaming silently down her face when a knock came at the door. Come in, she called, hastily wiping her cheeks. Grayson entered, focused on a document in his hand. Autumn, about the education summit next week, I think we should... He looked up, finally noticing her tear-stained face. He stopped abruptly. What's wrong? Nothing, she said, attempting a smile. Actually, everything's right. My mother's latest scans came back. The treatment's working. The tumors have shrunk by 60%. That's excellent news, Grayson said, clearly uncomfortable with her emotional display. It is. She wiped away another rogue tear. The doctors at Westbrook Medical Center are calling it remarkable progress. They're optimistic about her prognosis now. Grayson shifted awkwardly. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you, she said softly. I know our arrangement is complicated, but what you've done for my mother, I can never repay that. It's a contractual obligation, he replied stiffly. No repayment necessary. Despite his businesslike tone, Autumn noticed something flicker in his eyes. Discomfort, certainly, but also something else she couldn't quite identify. Right, of course. She straightened in her chair. You mentioned the education summit? Grayson seemed relieved to return to business matters. Yes, I've arranged for you to speak on the main panel about classroom resource allocation. Senator Mitchell will be there, along with the state education commissioner. You actually did. It, Autumn said, surprised despite herself. You got me a seat at the table. I said I would. He sounded almost offended that she doubted him. Your expertise is valuable. The panel would be incomplete without a current classroom teacher's perspective. That's unexpectedly thoughtful. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. I do occasionally think about things beyond profit margins, contrary to popular belief. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the atmosphere in the room shifted, charged with something neither of them seemed prepared to acknowledge. Grayson cleared his throat. There's one more thing. My parents are coming to town next weekend. Your parents? In their weeks of planning their public narrative, Grayson had barely mentioned his family. They want to meet you. And see Maddie. Of course. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of uncertainty. They're traditional. They don't know the true nature of our arrangement. And you don't want to tell them, Autumn guessed. My father has a heart condition, Grayson explained. My mother is convinced any shock could trigger an episode, so you want me to pretend we're madly in love? If it's not too much to ask. There was an unfamiliar note in his voice, something almost like vulnerability. Autumn considered him. For all his wealth and power, in this moment he looked like any son dreading his parents' judgment. I suppose I could manage an Academy Award-worthy performance for a weekend, she conceded. But you'll owe me. Add it to my tab, he replied, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. The following morning, Autumn was enjoying a rare moment of solitude in the mansion's sunroom when her phone buzzed with a text from Harper. 911. Call me now! Concerned, Autumn immediately dialed her friend. Have you seen it? Harper demanded without preamble. Seen what? Oh God, you haven't. Go to Trendwatch's website. Now. Autumn quickly pulled up the celebrity gossip site on her tablet. Her stomach dropped as she saw the headline, Trouble in Paradise. Westbrook's new fiancé, caught in secret rendezvous. Beneath it was a grainy photo of Autumn embracing a man in a hospital corridor. That's my mother's oncologist, Autumn exclaimed. Dr. Patel was giving me an update on her treatment. Well, the internet thinks he's your secret lover, Harper replied grimly. Comments are speculating you're a gold digger two-timing America's favorite billionaire. Autumn's hands shook as she scrolled through the article, reading the vicious speculation about her character and motives. This is insane. We were in a hospital hallway. I was thanking him for saving my mother's life. I know that, but... The study door flew open and Grayson strode in, his expression thunderous. Have you seen the article? I just did, Autumn said, her stomach clenching. Grayson, that's my mother's doctor. I was at the hospital yesterday, for her follow-up appointment. I know. His tone was clipped. Autumn blinked in surprise. You do? Of course I do. Dr. Patel works for my medical center. He reports to my board. Grayson paced the room, radiating tension. I've already had my legal team contact Trendwatch demanding a retraction and public apology. You believe me? Autumn asked, hating the uncertainty in her voice. Grayson stopped pacing and looked at her as if she'd suggested the earth might be flat. Why wouldn't I? You're not the type to carry on a clandestine affair in a hospital hallway. It's absurd. Relief washed over her, followed by a wave of gratitude. Thank you for believing me. Don't thank me for having basic critical thinking skills, he muttered, returning to his pacing. The problem is the public narrative. Trendwatch will retract, but the damage is done. People love a scandal, especially one involving someone of my Profile. We could issue a statement explaining. Dignifying it with a response only extends the news cycle. He shook his head. We need a counter-narrative. Something the media will find more interesting than fabricated infidelity. Autumn's phone buzzed again. A text from the school principal expressing concern about the situation. She groaned. My professional reputation is on the line here too, Grayson. People at the school are already seeing this. Grayson's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry. You didn't sign up for this level of public scrutiny. Actually, I did, she pointed out. It was in the contract. Page 17, Section 4, Paragraph 2. Heightened media attention and associated inconveniences. A surprised laugh escaped. Him. You actually read the entire contract? Of course I did. I'm not in the habit of signing things I haven't read, unlike some of your business associates, I'm sure. For a moment, they shared a genuine smile before Grayson's phone rang. His expression darkened as he checked the screen. Maddie's school, he said before answering. Hello? Yes, this is Mr. Westbrook. Autumn watched as his jaw tightened. I see. Yes, we'll come right away. He ended the call, anger radiating from him in almost palpable waves. Some of the older students showed Maddie the article. She got upset and punched a 5th grader who suggested you were cheating on her daddy. We need to pick her up. 20 minutes later, they sat in the headmistress's office, Maddie between them with tear-streaked cheeks and a defiant expression. While we understand Maddie was upset, physical violence is never acceptable at Oak Ridge Academy, the headmistress intoned solemnly. Jackson said mean things about Miss Hayes, Maddie insisted. He said she was a gold diggy tramp. Autumn's face flamed as Grayson's expression hardened dangerously. And which parent does this Jackson belong to? He asked in a deceptively calm voice. Mr. Westbrook, I can't disclose. Timothy and Rebecca Crawford, Maddie supplied helpfully. His dad works for you. He said so lots of times. A cold smile settled on Grayson's face. I see. How interesting. Grayson. Autumn cautioned quietly, placing a hand on his arm. Not now. To her surprise, he took a deep breath and visibly reined in his anger. You're right. He turned to the headmistress. We understand the school's position on violence. Maddie will apologize for the punch, though not for defending her family. Family? The headmistress echoed, glancing uncertainly between them. Yes, Grayson said firmly, taking Autumn's hand in his. We are a family. Maddie, Miss Hayes, and myself. And we protect each other. Autumn felt something shift in her chest at his words. Despite knowing their arrangement was temporary, a business deal with an expiration date, there was something in the way Grayson said family that felt genuine. Later that afternoon, Autumn found Maddie in her bedroom, sulking over her punishment of no screens for the weekend. Hey, tough girl, Autumn said gently, sitting on the edge of the bed. Want to talk about what happened today? Maddie fidgeted with her stuffed triceratops. Jackson is a buttface. He said you were only with Daddy for his money and that you were kissing another man. That must have been upsetting to hear, Autumn acknowledged. I told him it wasn't true, but he showed me the picture on his stupid phone. Maddie looked up, uncertainty in her eyes. It wasn't true, right? The man in that picture is your grandma's doctor. I was thanking him for helping her get better. Relief washed over Maddie's face. That's what I thought. But then Jackson said you didn't really love Daddy or me, that you were pretending. Autumn's heart clenched. Maddie, I care about you very much. That is absolutely not pretend. And Daddy? The innocent question trapped Autumn in her own web of half-truths. Before she could formulate a response, a voice from the doorway answered. Your teacher and I have a complicated relationship, Munchkin, Grayson said, entering the room. but we both care about what's best for you. That's the most important thing." He sat on Maddie's other side, creating a small circle between the three of them. "However, while defending people you care about is admirable, punching is never the answer. Next time, come find a teacher or call me." "But you punched that guy in the news last year," Maddie pointed out. "The one who said mean stuff about Mom." Grayson winced. "That was a mistake, not one of my finer moments." "It was kind of cool, though," Maddie said with a sly smile. "Jackson's nose made a funny sound when I hit him." "Madeline Rose Westbrook," Grayson said sternly, though Autumn caught the twitch of his lips. I know, violence is wrong," Maddie recited, "but nobody talks bad about our family." That evening, after Maddie was asleep, Autumn found Grayson in his home office, surrounded by financial reports but staring pensively at a family photograph on his desk. "You handled that well today," she said from the doorway. "The school situation." He looked up, surprised by her presence. "Contrary to my public reputation, I don't actually enjoy intimidating school administrators." "Could have fooled me." She ventured further into the room. "For what it's worth, I think you're a good father. You balance discipline with understanding. It's not easy." "It doesn't feel like I'm doing it right most of the time," he admitted, setting aside his papers. "After Eliza died, I had no idea how to be both parents to Maddie. Still don't, really." The rare moment of vulnerability drew Autumn to take a seat across from him. "Nobody gets it perfect, but Maddie knows you love her. That's what matters most." Grayson's gaze shifted to the photograph, him with a beautiful dark-haired woman and a toddler-aged Maddie. Eliza was the natural parent, patient, intuitive. I was always the one with the spreadsheets and development timelines. Spreadsheets? Autumn couldn't help but smile. A sheepish look crossed his face. "I created a matrix of age-appropriate developmental milestones and optimal enrichment activities." "Of course you did." She laughed softly. "You know, that's actually sweet, in an incredibly type A way." Eliza thought so too. His expression grew distant. "She used to say I approached fatherhood like a corporate takeover. Thorough research, strategic planning, and relentless execution." "Was she in business too?" "No, she was a concert pianist." Something in his voice softened at the memory. "We were complete opposites. She lived for art and emotion. I lived for data and results." "Yet you fell in love," Autumn observed. "Completely," he acknowledged. "She brought chaos to my ordered world, and somehow it was exactly what I needed." He looked up, meeting Autumn's eyes. "Until I lost her. Then the chaos just felt like chaos." The raw honesty of his admission created an intimacy neither of them had anticipated. For the first time, Autumn saw beyond the billionaire facade to the man who had loved deeply and lost terribly. "I'm sorry," she said simply. "It sounds like she was remarkable." "She was, and she would have approved of you, by the way." A faint smile touched his lips. "She always said I needed people in my life who weren't afraid to call me on my bullshit." Autumn laughed. "I do seem to be doing that with alarming frequency. It's refreshing, actually." His gaze lingered on her face a moment longer than necessary. "Most people are too intimidated or too interested in what I can do for them." "Well, I'm already contractually guaranteed $3 million and world-class medical care for my mother, so I have the luxury of honesty." Her attempt at lightness fell flat, as Grayson's expression closed off. "Right, the contract." He straightened in his chair, professional distance reasserting itself. "Speaking of which, I've had my PR team draft a strategy for addressing the tabloid situation." The abrupt shift in tone was jarring, but Autumn understood its purpose. They'd ventured too close to something real, something neither of them had bargained for in their carefully negotiated arrangement. "What's the plan?" she asked, accepting the change of subject. A series of public appearances together, very much in love, culminating in an exclusive interview with Vanity Fair at the estate. They've been requesting it since our engagement, was announced. And you think people will believe we're madly in love after one magazine interview? People believe what they want to believe, Grayson replied, fully back in business mode, especially when it's presented with professional lighting and a sympathetic journalist. Cynical, but probably accurate, Autumn conceded. As she turned to leave, Grayson called after her. Autumn? She paused at the door. Yes? For a moment, he seemed on the verge of saying something significant. Then he simply said, Thank you. For today. For Maddie. You're welcome, she replied softly. As she made her way through the quiet mansion to her wing, Autumn found herself troubled by her own confused feelings. What had begun as a straightforward business arrangement was becoming anything but. Somewhere between charity galas and school, meetings, between Maddie's hugs and Grayson's rare moments of vulnerability, lines were blurring dangerously. The most unsettling realization was not that she was starting to care for this makeshift family. It was that when the contract ended, as it inevitably would, she stood to lose far more than she'd ever anticipated. They're 15 minutes late, Grayson muttered, checking his watch for the 5th time in as many minutes. My father is never late. Autumn placed a calming hand on his arm. The airport said their flight was delayed. Relax. They stood in the mansion's grand foyer, awaiting the arrival of Grayson's parents. Maddie bounced excitedly nearby, wearing her favorite dress and clutching a handmade card for her grandparents. When was the last time they visited? Autumn asked. 2 years ago, after Eliza. Grayson trailed off. We had a disagreement about how I was raising Maddie. My father thought I was too focused on work, not enough on family. Was he right? Autumn asked gently. Grayson's gaze shifted to Maddie. Probably, he admitted quietly. It was easier to bury myself in work than face the empty spaces Eliza left behind. Before Autumn could respond, the doorbell rang. Maddie sprinted to the door, but Grayson caught her by the shoulders. Remember, Munchkin, Grandpa needs gentle hugs. The moment the door opened, Maddie forgot all instructions, hurling herself at the distinguished silver-haired man with a cry of, Grandpa! Robert Westbrook staggered slightly but laughed, lifting his granddaughter with surprising strength for a man in his 70s. There's my favorite scientist. Have you blown up any more volcanoes lately? Daddy says I'm not allowed to bring science experiments to public events anymore, Maddie reported seriously. Sensible rule, agreed Patricia Westbrook, an elegant woman whose penetrating gaze immediately reminded Autumn of her son. She embraced Grayson warmly before turning her attention to Autumn. And you must be the teacher who's captured my impossible son's heart. Mom, Grayson warned. What? It's a compliment to you both. Patricia took Autumn's hands in hers. After meeting you at last, I understand why he's been so secretive. He was afraid we'd like you more than him. A distinct possibility, Robert added with a wink, setting Maddie down. To Autumn's surprise, the afternoon unfolded with unexpected ease. The elder Westbrooks were warm, down-to-earth people who seemed nothing like what she'd expected of Billionaire. Parents. Robert delighted Maddie with magic tricks, while Patricia helped Autumn prepare lunch, sharing stories of Grayson as a stubborn, serious child. He built his first investment portfolio at 12, Patricia recalled, chopping vegetables, with practiced efficiency. Used his allowance to buy stocks in that video game company all the children were obsessed with. He'd analyzed their quarterly earnings and predicted a holiday surge. That sounds like Grayson, Autumn laughed. Maddie has that same analytical mind. But she has your warmth, Patricia observed casually. I've never seen her so balanced. Intellectual curiosity and emotional openness. It's a powerful combination. Autumn felt a pang of guilt at taking credit for qualities that rightfully belonged to Maddie's biological mother. I think that's more Eliza's influence. Patricia's hand stilled. You speak of her comfortably. That's unexpected. She's an important part of Maddie's life, and Grayson's, Autumn replied honestly. I would never want to erase or replace that. Patricia studied her with newfound respect. You know, when Grayson told us he was engaged, especially so quickly, we worried. Not about his choice, but about his motivations. We thought perhaps he was trying to create stability for Maddie without doing the emotional work himself. Autumn shifted uncomfortably, too close to the truth for comfort. But seeing you together, Patricia continued, there's something genuine there. The way he looks at you when you're not watching. I haven't seen that since Eliza. Before Autumn could formulate a response that wasn't entirely dishonest, Maddie burst into the kitchen. Grandpa says lunch is taking forever and his stomach thinks his throat's been cut. Robert, Patricia scolded. Such expressions around the child. Lunch stretched into afternoon tea, which extended into dinner preparations. As Autumn helped Maddie set the table, she noticed Grayson and his father in deep conversation on the terrace, their serious expressions suggesting weighty topics. Is everything okay out there? She asked Patricia, who was uncorking wine. Overdue father-son conversations, Patricia replied. After Eliza died, Grayson shut down emotionally. Robert pushed too hard. Grayson pushed back. They're both too stubborn for their own good. Through the glass doors, Autumn watched as Robert placed a hand on Grayson's shoulder. Something in Grayson's posture softened, and he nodded in response to whatever his father had said. When they returned inside, Grayson's eyes sought out Autumn's across the room. The intensity of his gaze made her heart skip. It contained gratitude, confusion, and something deeper she wasn't ready to name. After dinner, as Robert entertained Maddie with elaborate bedtime stories, Patricia cornered Autumn in the kitchen. I know my son, she said without preamble. He thinks he can control everything, emotions included. But the heart doesn't work that way. Mrs. Westbrook? Patricia, please. And I'm not meddling, not really. I just want you to know that whatever arrangement you two have, and don't look surprised, I raised a businessman who believes everything can be negotiated. It can change. Contracts can be amended when circumstances warrant. Autumn stared at her, speechless. Patricia patted her hand. Just something to consider, dear. Later that night, after Maddie and the elder Westbrooks had retired, Autumn found Grayson in his study, nursing a glass of scotch. Your parents are wonderful, she said, accepting the glass he poured for her. Not at all what I expected. What did you expect? Fire-breathing dragons who count their gold coins? Something like that, she admitted with a smile. They're surprisingly normal. They retired from active business 20 years ago. Living in Vermont, growing heirloom tomatoes and volunteering has mellowed them considerably. He took a sip of his drink, though they still managed to interrogate me thoroughly about our relationship. What did you tell them? Enough truth to be convincing. His eyes met hers over the rim of his glass. That you challenge me. That Maddie adores you. That things are progressing. The ambiguity of his last statement hung between them. Your mother knows, Autumn said quietly, about our arrangement. Grayson didn't seem surprised. She's perceptive, always, has been. She thinks it's changing. Our arrangement. He set down his glass carefully. Is it? The direct question caught Autumn off guard. She'd expected deflection, a retreat to their contractual terms. Instead, Grayson was looking at her with an openness she'd rarely seen from him. I don't know, she answered honestly. I didn't expect to care so much. About Maddie. About... She hesitated. "About me?" he supplied quietly. Before she could respond, his phone rang. Grayson frowned at the screen. "It's Vanessa. She wouldn't call this late unless—" He answered quickly. "Yes?" Autumn watched as his expression shifted from annoyance to concern to something approaching panic. "When? How bad?" "Yes, I'll come immediately." He ended the call, already striding toward the door. "It's my father. Heart attack. They've taken him to Westbrook Medical Center." The next few hours passed in a blur. Patricia rode in the ambulance with Robert, while Grayson drove Autumn to the hospital at speeds that made her clutch the door handle. Mrs. Winters stayed with the still sleeping Maddie. In the hospital waiting room, they found Patricia, her composure intact, but fear evident in the lines around her eyes. "They're running tests," she reported as Grayson embraced her. "The doctor says it was a mild episode, caught early. Your father was complaining about indigestion after dinner, but I recognized the symptoms." Grayson nodded grimly. "Best possible scenario, then. Quick response, top facility." As they settled in for the wait, Autumn stepped back, feeling suddenly like an intruder on a private family moment. "I should give you both some space." "Don't you dare," Patricia said firmly, reaching for her hand. "You're family now." The word struck Autumn with unexpected force. Family. Was that what they had become, despite the artificial beginnings? Hours later, as dawn broke over the city, the doctor delivered good news. Robert was stable, the attack indeed minor, with minimal heart damage. He would need rest and medication adjustments, but a full recovery was expected. When they were finally allowed to see him, Robert was characteristically defiant about his condition. It was indigestion and overzealous medical professionals, he insisted, though the monitors and IV lines belied his casual tone. "You'll follow every medical recommendation to the letter," Patricia informed him with steel in her voice. "I'm not losing you to stubbornness." "Yes, dear," Robert replied, meekly winking at Autumn. To Grayson, he added, "Son, take Autumn home. She's been up all night, and one of us should check on Maddie." Outside the hospital room, Grayson ran a hand over his face, the strain of the night evident in the shadows under his eyes. "He's right. You should rest. I can call a car for you." "And leave you here alone? Not a chance." Autumn shook her head. "Let's check on Maddie together. Then we can come back." In the car, exhaustion settled over them both. Grayson drove in silence, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "He's going to be fine," Autumn said softly. "I know." His voice was tight. "Logically, I know that. But seeing him in that hospital bed—" "It's scary," she acknowledged. "No matter how prepared you think you are." Grayson glanced at her. "Like your mother." "Yes." She looked out at the city coming awake around them. "It makes you realize how quickly everything can change, how little control we actually have." They arrived home to find Maddie still asleep, Mrs. Winters dozing in an armchair nearby. After confirming all was well, Grayson and Autumn found themselves in the kitchen, the morning light casting long shadows across the counter. "You should sleep," Grayson said, starting the coffee maker. "I'll head back to the hospital in an hour." "So should you." Autumn studied his exhausted face. "You're no good to your parents if you collapse from exhaustion." "I don't collapse," he stated matter-of-factly. "Westbrooks endure." Despite everything, Autumn laughed. "Of course they do. Silly me." A weary smile touched his lips. "I haven't thanked you properly. For last night. For everything these past months." "No thanks needed." She accepted the coffee he offered. "That's what family does." The word hung between them, echoing Patricia's earlier statement. Grayson set down his mug with deliberate care. "Is that what we are? Family?" The directness of his question demanded equal honesty. It feels that way sometimes, doesn't it? Yes. His admission was quiet but certain. More often than I expected. Autumn took a steadying breath. Grayson, when we made this arrangement, it was supposed to be simple. A business transaction. But it's become complicated. Because of Maddie, he suggested. Not just Maddie. She met his gaze directly. You're not who I thought you were. Neither are you. He moved closer, the kitchen island still between them. When this all started, I saw you as a solution to a problem, a qualified candidate to provide stability for my daughter. Efficient, practical. And now? Autumn barely breathed the question. Now I see you. Autumn, who stands up to senators about education funding, who helps Maddie build ridiculous blanket forts, who stayed all night at the hospital without being asked. His voice softened. Who makes me laugh when no one else can. The intensity of his gaze made her heart race. What are you saying, Grayson? I'm saying the terms of our arrangement may need revision. He circled the island slowly, coming to stand before her. Significant revision. I'm listening, she whispered. I propose an amendment, he said, his voice low. The 2-year term limit? Removed. The separate bedrooms clause? Negotiable. The financial settlement? Irrelevant. Those are substantial changes, Autumn managed, her heart thundering in her chest. What exactly are you proposing? Something much simpler and infinitely more complicated. He took her hands in his. I'm proposing we stop pretending, that we acknowledge what's happening between us is real. And what is that exactly? She needed to hear him say it. I'm falling in love with you, Autumn Hayes. The words seemed to surprise even him. But once spoken, his certainty was evident. Not according to schedule, not according to plan, but undeniably, inconveniently, completely. Joy and fear warred within her. This is a risk, she whispered. For both of us. The biggest. He traced her cheek with his fingertips. But you're worth it. We're worth it. Their first real kiss, not for show, not for cameras, but for themselves alone, was gentle, tentative, a question being asked and answered in the quiet morning light of their shared kitchen. When they finally pulled apart, Autumn rested her, forehead against his. So what happens now? Now? Grayson smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that transformed his face. Now we rewrite the contract, together, one day at a time. Daddy? Miss Hayes? Maddie's sleepy voice came from the doorway. She rubbed her eyes, clutching her stuffed triceratops. Why are you hugging in the kitchen? Is everything okay? Grayson lifted her into his arms. Everything is more than okay, Munchkin. Grandpa got a little sick last night, but he's going to be fine. And, Autumn added, meeting Grayson's eyes over Maddie's head, we have something important to tell you. What? Maddie looked between them curiously. Our wedding, Grayson said softly. It's not going to be just for pretend anymore. Maddie's eyes widened. You mean you're going to love each other for real? Like in the movies? Autumn laughed, joy bubbling up inside her. I think we already do, sweetheart. The little girl's face lit up with delight. I knew it. Mrs. Winters owes me $5. She said it would take at least 6 more months. Grayson raised an eyebrow. You've been betting on us? Just a little, Maddie said innocently. Can we go tell Grandpa and Grandma? Grandpa bet on you too. As they all laughed together, Autumn marveled at the unexpected turn her life had taken. 6 months ago, she'd been a dedicated teacher with mounting medical bills and a carefully ordered life. Now she stood in a billionaire's kitchen, part of a family formed through the strangest of circumstances, her heart full in ways she'd never anticipated. Later that day, As they sat by Robert's hospital bed, the elder Westbrook already plotting his escape despite Patricia's stern objections, Autumn watched Grayson with Maddie. The little girl was describing in elaborate detail how she knew all along that her daddy and teacher would fall in love for real. She gets her romantic streak from her grandmother, Robert informed Autumn in a stage whisper. Patricia proposed to me, you know, said she didn't have time to wait for me to figure out the obvious. I'd call that efficiency, not romance. Patricia sniffed, though her fond smile belied her words. The best romances are both, Robert replied, squeezing his wife's hand. To Grayson, he added, You finally found that balance, son. Took you long enough. Grayson glanced at Autumn, his eyes warm with promise. Some negotiations are worth taking time to get right. 6 months later, Autumn stood in the mansion's garden, now transformed with thousands of twinkling lights and fragrant spring blossoms. She smoothed the simple ivory gown she'd chosen despite Grayson's insistence that she could have any designer dress in the world. Ready? Harper asked, adjusting Autumn's veil. Your billionaire is practically vibrating with impatience out there. He hates waiting, Autumn smiled. But some things can't be scheduled or ordered according to plan. Like falling in love with your fake fiancé? Harper teased. Exactly like that. Autumn took a deep breath. Completely unplanned, utterly illogical, and absolutely perfect, finished a small voice. Maddie appeared in her flower girl dress, beaming with pride at her role in the ceremony. Daddy sent me to check if you're ready. He said to tell you that the contract has an on-time delivery clause. Autumn laughed. Tell your father that some things are worth waiting for. As the music began, and Autumn prepared to walk toward the man who had begun as her business arrangement and become the love of her life, she reflected on the strange, wonderful journey that had brought them here. Sometimes the most beautiful stories began with the most unusual first chapters. And as she met Grayson's eyes across the garden, saw the love and certainty in his gaze, Autumn knew that their most extraordinary chapters were still to come, written together, one day at a time with their whole hearts.